Welcome to A Brief Pause, where we cover a variety of pet related topics. Today, we're going to cover a big one, a big controversy between breeders and rescue. And I'm so excited to actually be in St. Louis and in Salon de Fluff, which is a salon owned by Jessica Uzzetta. And she is my special guest today because she covers both sides of this. She is not only a breeder, she's a massive advocate for rescue. In fact, when I came to her salon today, there is a van from animal control outside because she gets her hands dirty. She's heavily involved, and they brought her a Great Pyrenees to last minute bathe so it can get adopted. And so I'm really excited to have her on and give us some knowledge about both sides and talk a lot about this topic. Welcome, Jessica Uzzetta. So sorry I said it wrong.
Okay.
I've known her 20-something years. We worked together many, many moons ago when I had a salon in St. Louis. Also, I'm in St. Louis right now. We're being safe. Trust me, everyone has their shots. So this is so much to talk about. This might end up being multiple podcasts, but I'm just so excited to talk to someone that I think it's not because we're friends that I have her on here. It's because this person actually knows so much information. So let me let you describe, what do you do? What are all the hats that you wear? Because it's so much, I could never.
Yes, so I am a certified master groomer and a open level competitor. I started in the dog world as a rescue person when I was about 10 years old. I got started doing rescue with a local rescue group here, and then working with some other rescue groups. That's actually where I started grooming. One of the ladies that I volunteered with was a dog groomer, and she was like, "Oh, well, you should try this." So that's how I got started grooming. I still do rescue to this day. I work with the Missouri Poodle Rescue. I work with a couple other rescue groups, a local animal shelter actually. I work with them every week. And then I groom a lot of dogs for them. I also groom my own rescue dogs. We do adoptions, all that stuff. And then I also show and breed my poodles. I have miniature and standard poodles, and I show and breed in UKC and AKC. So,
yeah, all the things. So, I had mentioned in the preview, I showed up to Jessica's salon today, and there was, a truck outside from Animal Control. She's heavily, heavily involved in rescue. So it's not just a little here and there or throwing some money at a rescue organization as a business and donating and whatever.
yes.
This is someone who's hands-on, heavily involved. When I showed up as the Great Pyrenees today, that is a lot of work, okay, and had really bad mats behind the ears that her and Chuck from St. Charles Animal Control, who's amazing, were working it out and getting it together. And luckily that dog did find a home already, so she was just cleaning it up before being transported to its home. Getting the elbows in, getting the hands dirty and being genuinely elbow deep in this kind of thing is again, why I'm talking to you. Let's start from the beginning, because this is battle of the century, right? Everyone has very strong opinions about breeders versus rescue people. They both, I think, have positives and negatives. So let's break it down. I think you can advocate for both and also share a ton of information. When we had spoken before, you had talked about the breeding part, right? So we'll start there. There's so much going on with breeding. There's so much information and non-information out there about good breeder and why we care about finding a good breeder, why someone would choose breeding over rescue, why breed preservation exists, and what that looks like and how you find a good breeder if that is what is right for you and your family or your job or your situation, and it just must be a specific breed. Talk about that. What does that look like? How does that happen? And how do people find, and why do they really need to find what they're looking for?
Right. So some people, some lifestyles, they need a particular breed of dog, whether it be for the temperament or the energy level, or they're allergic, to dogs, whatever the case may be. There are people that, can't just go to the shelter and just pick a dog, especially people with young children. A lot of people want to have a puppies because you never know, shelter dogs may be great. And, the good shelters and rescues that temperament test them, but you don't always know. So that is a small risk. So a lot of times getting a puppy from a reputable breeder that does all the things that they need to do, the health testing, the temperament, early socialization, desensitizing, the people that spend all their time and money on, preserving their breed and raising the best quality, healthy puppies that they can, that's a huge difference. So if you're, somebody that needs a laid back dog, you're not going to go get a terrier, or a sporting dog that needs lots of energy. You're going to get something that's, a lap dog or something low energy that is best suited for your family. So you need to be able to have a resource or a place that you can go to find, that particular breed of dog. And that's why it's important that people we still have purebred dogs. I'm an advocate for purebred dogs. I'm also an advocate for rescue dogs. There has to be a balance there somewhere. But yeah, the number of people that come looking for particular dogs is pretty overwhelming, especially right now because of COVID. So
yeah, there's a lot of new dog owners, and that's why I think some of these subjects, frankly, this subject is for existing dog owners. I think this is one of those things that's such a mystery in the industry because people feel polarized, right? You either feel really strongly one way or the other. They have to coexist, like you said. So why don't we try to make both exist, or at least make people knowledgeable about both? I do think breed preservation, and I mean, it's not my opinion, I'm not here to interview myself, but personally, my idea is that breed preserved dogs have a purpose. There is a reason, like you said. I mean, some dogs have very specific jobs, and working dogs, I wouldn't be able to do that if you weren't doing preservation. I would say, with sort of the crisis of all the rescue dogs out there, and that's whole, the other part of the industry of breeding dogs and pet stores and things like that, the breed preservation and that amount of dogs should be lesser than rescue, right? It should be, my idea is there shouldn't be equal amount because we already have so many that can't even find a home, right? So should it be thousands and thousands and thousands of bred dogs? I don't think that's even possible, is the thing, because what does it look like to have an actual responsibly bred dog?
So what does that look like? So that means that you have done your research, you found a breeder that does, checks all the boxes. They're doing the health testing. They're doing, small litters. They're not, they don't have a lot of dogs. So there's a little conflict with people there where some breeders, they have more dogs than others. But, the people that are selling you a dog are going to form a relationship with you. They're going to talk to you. They're going to present, all of the things that they've done to preserve this breed and all the work that they've put in to preserve this breed. Sometimes people will have two different breeds, but people, they put in all this work and they want you to really enjoy, and they want you to have a lifelong, relationship with them. Some people will come back and they continue to buy dogs from the same breeder. So it's important that you really, ask the right questions. You look into, what they've done, how the dogs are living. The thing with breeders, which, responsible breeders, they don't sell their dogs to puppy stores or online. They want to have a relationship with the person. They want to know where their puppies are going, because we invest all this time and energy into raising them. Personally, I take 3 weeks off of work when I have a litter of puppies. For the first 3 weeks, I'm at home doing all of these special things, these socialization and desensitizing and all that stuff.
The special things, because you had mentioned before when we were talking about some of those special things. Like, we talked about health testing, but every breeder says they do a health test, right? Every breeder says it's socialized. Every breeder has some pictures. But what's the difference people can look out for, and what really makes that difference? People can go online, and every place they can research how to search a breeder, but then that same breeder can research what do people need to hear, right?
Right.
So how do people actually do their checks and balances? And frankly, I just want to mention that the price should not be the factor, because I've seen dogs that cost just as much as a responsibly bred dog, if not more, that are just, let's be real, puppy mill dogs, if not backyard bred dogs, meaning someone who doesn't really know or isn't doing all of these things. So get into what does a health test look like? How can they check? What is the socialization that you're talking about? What are those things that are getting done that make the real difference?
So, so health testing. So all breeders that health test their dogs, they will use a genetic panel for that particular breed. There's several companies, but they send off a genetic panel to test to see if their dogs are carriers for certain genetic diseases. They also will do the Orthopedic Foundation for Animals recommendation They have testing on their website of which each breed should have done. They also have a directory on there, so you can look up a breeder to see if their dogs are health tested, if they passed, what their scores were, how many dogs they've health tested. You can also ask them for proof, say, can I see the health testing? Because it's real easy to tell people that you've health tested your dogs unless you've actually done it. You'll have the paperwork. Most of the time, for instance, the Orthopedic Foundation for Animals, those tests are actually, your dog has to be microchipped and it has to have a number and it has to match. And
Wow.
so it's kind of legit there. And, finding a breeder that is willing to spend the time and give you time, like I said, with doing videos, doing FaceTime, sending lots of videos of puppies, not just one or two, or here's a few pictures. Every single day I take pictures of my puppies, almost every single day. My kids are involved. We do a lot with the socialization and early desensitizing of things. That starts, at just 3 days old. There's a couple different companies. There's Puppy Culture and Avidog are two great programs that a lot of really good breeders utilize. And there's also breeders that utilize just the tools that they give you to make sure that you have a really well-rounded puppy that is able to adjust well to stress, that's able to adjust well to change. They also do temperament testing at around 8 weeks old. And the other thing is, puppies should never leave before, 10 weeks is like really the minimum. Sometimes they'll do 8 weeks, but they should never, ever, ever leave before 10 weeks old. 8 weeks, like I said, is a little early for me. I like to keep mine like 10 to 12 weeks, depending on the puppy.
So on the rescue side, to switch back over to that, yeah, you can get a puppy, and some rescues have the capacity to do these socializations. And I would say lots, if not most, rescue dogs can be appropriate for families if chosen properly and what have you. Especially these amazing organizations now that have time to foster. You do a lot of foster work.
Yep.
And you pay a lot of attention. And I know there's a lot of people that have gone to adopt or foster, and they're like, what is with this 25-page paperwork? Well, the reason is that dog ended up there because someone before that potentially didn't, right?
Right.
And I would say, what I tell people is every question on that thing that seems insane is there because it's happened before.
Yes,
or 1,000
exactly.
times,
Yep.
right? So they're trying to mitigate this happening again and again, obviously putting the dog through it, but also putting the organization through it, putting the fosters through it, everything, right? And making sure it's a good fit so that there isn't problems, even if the potential adopter doesn't think, oh, this, of course it's not going to be a problem. They might know a little more than you and see something that could be. So they're not crazy, I promise. However, rescues are not without their flaws, right? So what can people look for in a good rescue? I mentioned this on a previous podcast, that not all rescues are created equal. There's some, and it doesn't necessarily have to do with the size, right? It has to do with, are they actually 501c3, blah, blah, blah. Let you talk about that because you're even more knowledgeable than me on that.
So yes, so all rescues are obviously very different. They all have their own agenda and their own plan and their own goals. The thing that people have to remember about rescue groups is the goal should be finding pets that are adoptable and then taking those pets, bringing them into the rescue, evaluating them, figuring out their personality, their quirks, their issues, if they have any, and then being able to have a really good, solid answer and picture of this dog that someone is going to bring into their home and be, for the rest of their life as a pet. The thing with rescues sometimes is, when I was younger, I did the same thing. A lot of rescues have really bleeding hearts and they want to save everything, every single animal. And unfortunately, that's just not possible. And it leaves a lot of really adoptable animals stuck in very bad situations or that aren't able to get out of a shelter situation. So it's important that when you go to a rescue group, you know exactly what you're looking for so that you can communicate with them what you're needing, what your household's like, what your lifestyle's like. If you work, 10, 12 hours a day, are you going to be able to have, somebody come let your dog out? You obviously shouldn't have a puppy. It's going to be in a kennel that long. And then talking to them and making sure the rescue group that you're looking at, make sure that they have a regular veterinarian on staff because some of them don't. Make sure that the dog has been to a regular veterinarian, to be to have, all of it checked out and everything like that. Make sure that it's been on flea and tick preventative. Make sure it's been heartworm tested and it's on heartworm preventative. What else? Make sure that they have a trainer on staff, especially if you're dealing with adult dogs or, dogs that are bigger that maybe have issues or, not necessarily like aggression issues, but some dogs have a lot of separation anxiety from just being transitioned a lot and moved around a lot. So just making sure that they are setting the dogs up for success and not setting them up for failure, because there are some groups that just want to get them in a home, even if it's not the right home. And it's the same with puppies. Like, it needs to be a good fit, for the person and the dog. So
Yeah, and a little bit of, validity to the ones that are trying to move them out quickly. Sometimes it's because of overcrowding. It's a sad situation. It's sort of like if you can't move them out, where do they go, right? So there's a little bit of that as well. And there's smaller rescues that help relieve some of the strain on the largers, like Humane Society, ASPCA. They're wonderful organizations. They really are. They've been demonized over the years, but they're the first go-to, or animal control, right? They're the triage, right? They take everything all at once.
yeah,
Also, I want to mention that, we talk about things that rescue dogs can have. There's so many that have nothing. People have to surrender dogs for any number of reasons. Where I live in New York City, unfortunately, a lot of it, they have sometimes amazing, purebred, amazing dogs, or whatever someone might be looking for, sometimes still puppies that have a need to move all of a sudden, and there wasn't an apartment that allowed pets, and they had to let them go. Or they had a child or another animal that didn't react well to the new puppy or the new dog that they brought home, and it's not that dog's fault, et cetera, et cetera. So, I just don't want to generalize all rescue dogs have issues, or all rescue dogs are poorly bred or anything. You'd be surprised. They're everything. They're everything just like people are. They're a mix of everything. When you say?
yes. And, it's funny because people are like, oh, well, rescues and shelters, like, I think it's like 25% of shelter and rescue dogs are purebred dogs. So if you are looking for a particular breed of dog and you don't have to have a puppy, chances are you can probably find, that particular breed in a rescue or shelter. The other thing, most people, at least 50% of the reason dogs are turned into animal shelters is because of behavior issues. Because people want this cute little puppy and he's so cute. And sometimes they'll go and spend thousands of dollars on a puppy and then they don't train it. They don't follow up with the proper care that it needs. And then it becomes a problem because it wasn't given any tools that it needed to be successful. So, that's the other thing. People don't realize how much work puppies are, or just dogs in general. It's a living, breathing thing. You really have to take care of it. And so the rescues, a lot of times in the shelters, they get dogs, put on them that, need a lot of work. And sometimes, it's silly things like, oh, we didn't know we couldn't have a dog, but you didn't ask your landlord. Or, they're having to move or something has happened. But, the other thing that it's really important is that just because people's lives change doesn't mean we need to make them feel bad that they couldn't keep their dog. People tend to sort of demonize people that have to rehome their dog, and it doesn't always work. Sometimes people get divorced, things happen. Unfortunately, those people at least are trying to do better by their dog and find a better situation for them, or, get them into a rescue group or something so that they can get adopted. People, try just to be nice to people when they have to get a new home for their dog, because it is really hard.
What I'm seeing is people that have, I don't want to call them impatient or anything else, but if people have gotten new puppies and they're first-time dog owners, so they don't know any better, and they have tried really hard to do their research, but they've decided that they wanted to get a puppy because, luckily, the shelters were kind of emptied in the beginning of this, which was amazing. And people said, you know what, I want this kind of dog, and they went online and they did their research, and I'm already seeing puppies under 6 months that are showing issues. And like you said, showing issues before 2 years is less common. So when they're already showing issues physically, neurologically, skin, whatever, behaviorally, before 2 years, I'm very concerned about what these people will be going through. And trust me, they paid a lot. So it has nothing to do with the pay or the research or how fancy the website looked. This is why I'd like to spread the word. Also, we've talked a lot about puppies, but I'd like to talk about senior dogs, because I remember back then that was the first thing that you got involved in, was like senior dog rescue, and you would bring into my shop and say, can we please groom this one? Can we please groom this one?
Yeah.
So, of course,
So old dogs, I will tell you, I have a special place in my heart for old dogs. They're probably my favorite ones to rescue because nobody wants them. And so clearly I need to take them and help them. And I had actually fostered a bull terrier for a short time for my local St. Charles County Animal Control. And she had bad skin, and I was, I like to fix the skin problem. So I took her home, and then I fell in love with her, and then she never left. And she was an older dog when I got her. She was probably like 7.5 or 8 years old. And they have a slew of health problems like the bull
And by the
terriers
way, a bull
do. So
terrier is one of those like
Spuds McKenzie.
it's Spuds
Yeah.
McKenzie, but it's a pretty
Target
darn
dog.
rare breed that
Yeah.
people would think I could never adopt and
Yeah.
anything.
You'd be surprised. We've had 3 in the shelter since like I had her. So, they're there somewhere. They're not for everybody, obviously, but the old dogs are just rewarding because a lot of times, one, they're already housebroken, usually, and they usually, whatever behavior they're gonna have, they're pretty much already there. And they're on the bottom list of the dogs that get adopted because people want a young dog, they want a puppy. But man, an old dog is a treasure because they're usually just real easy and, they're easy to get along with. They're pretty, they're just aged, they know how to read you. They know how to kind of listen to you.
And by the way, we're talking old dogs. I mean, I would say in the animal world, as far as what people want, old dog can be as young as
5.
like 3 or 4
Yeah.
or 5.
I'd say
right?
5 and over. People are like, oh, he's 5.
And over is like an elderly dog. Like, okay, when they live in 18 years.
Yeah.
Also, this is the dog you get grandma, right?
Yeah.
Everyone wants to get a companion animal for an older person. Puppy's not the way, man.
No. Puppies are a pain in the butt, I tell you. They're a lot of work. A lot of work.
These are perfect.
Yeah.
And my dad has actually gotten, and there's an organization here that I forget which one, all of a sudden which one he used, but they even provided him, because he's a senior, fixed income, they provided him food. And
Oh, yeah, hospice care, yeah.
Hospice care. It's for like years.
Yep.
His last 2
Yep.
dogs, it's been for years, and he's really enjoyed it. When he's had to go into surgery, they took the dog back. There's some really amazing organizations out there, especially for senior dogs, because they just want to do anything they can for the dog to still have a home.
Yes, yes. Most of our poodles, like our small breed poodles that we get into rescue, are all like, the last 2 years, they've all been over like 8 or 10 years old. I had a couple that were like 13. I had 3 that were 13 in the same time that came in. And I was like, oh my gosh. But we found great homes for them. We had to get all their teeth cleaned and get them all healthy, but they did great, and they're all doing great in their new homes. They all adjust really well. Dogs adjust really well. Rescue dogs adjust well. You can change their name. They will adjust well to it. People try sometimes to humanize dogs. They don't really feel that whole like sadness because, 3 years ago somebody left me and, I miss my old family. Dogs don't have that sort of, they don't hold on to things like people do. So don't feel, dogs are so sad and they're always going to be sad. Because as soon as they get a new life and a new routine, they just kind of go with the flow and fall right into place with everything.
Yeah, now they can have trauma, but that's something different, right?
Yeah.
But as far as, doing that and
Some of them are always going to
missing a
hate the
former
mailman no
owner,
matter what.
they go with the flow.
So-
And trust me, if their former owner walked in, they would also be very excited.
Oh, yeah,
They don't-
absolutely.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
do. They live in the moment.
Yeah.
So what would you think, to kind of summarize, what would you think is the most important thing people should know about breeders or responsible breeders? What do you think is the most important thing for people to know about rescues? We did brush over the 501c3 thing. Research your rescue. There are for-profit rescues that are tricking you. Research that they're actually,
Yes.
nonprofit and that kind of thing. And what do you want to say about the controversy and how you think people could work together, or why you think they should?
So that's like a loaded question.
I
There.
know, I'm so excited.
So I think that people just need to really research the breeder, research the rescue group. As far as the rescue side. So rescue groups that always have puppies, that's a huge red flag. Like purebred, especially if they have purebred puppies or designer puppies, that's a huge red flag. Obviously, if they have brown, black puppies, that's different because there's always puppies being born. But people that have the designer breeds, like tiny, there's something there if they're constantly having those types of dogs. And the same thing with breeders. If they always have puppies available all the time, that would be a red flag to me because it's so much work. and really a person that's going to take the time, that has the energy and the, the equipment, not the equipment, but the time to like really do it the right way. They're not going to have puppies every month. They're not going to have litters and litters and litters and litters every year, every couple months. They're going to want to focus on those dogs and make sure that they're raising them right. And, the other thing too with rescues and with breeders is, the number of dogs that you have increases the number of disease risks that you have. So you have to keep that in mind when you go into a rescue or a shelter, and they have hundreds of dogs. That is always a risk you're going to take. They may be sick and unknowingly come home and not show signs right away. Same thing with buying a puppy from somebody that isn't getting them checked out before they go home, that isn't getting fecals done on them before they go home. All those things need to make sure that those are done, making sure that they take them to the actual vet. With breeders, that's a big thing. They need to go to the actual vet to be examined. And, I do my vaccines at the vet personally. Some people do them at home. But you have to be careful with that because those aren't always good, and they don't always are effective. They're very they're not shelf stable, so they have to be refrigerated a certain way. And so I always have my vet do my vaccines. My vet also does all of my other things for my puppies because, I just include it in the price so that I know that I have the peace of mind that they're being properly taken care of before they go home. And they should have a health certificate from their veterinarian before they go home also, saying that they were examined, they listened to them, everything seems fine before they go to their new home. And also the rescue groups, those dogs should always have a vet exam before they get adopted out. I know some of the rescue groups are so eager to kind of move the dogs through so that they have room so they can rescue more dogs. That's great and everything, but they really need to make sure that those animals are healthy and completely, free of any disease or illness before they send them off to someone. Because it can be heartbreaking. You adopt a dog, you fall in love with it right away, and then something's wrong with it, and then you're just like crushed. Same thing with buying a puppy from, a non-reputable breeder like a pet store or a puppy mill. If you go somewhere and there's just hundreds of dogs barking and it's not clean, or they have to meet you in a parking lot, that's like my biggest thing. Lately, I've had 3 family members that have bought puppies, and they're like, "Oh, well, they wouldn't let us come to their house. So they met us in a parking lot, and they never saw any video." Like, there's all these things that you just need to make sure.
Well, where do you meet your people? Because you said you don't let them come.
So I will meet them like when the puppies do get older, like after I've formed a relationship with them, because I have deposits on my puppies before they're even born.
Mm-hmm.
So once my puppies are a certain age, I do allow them to come over and visit one time before they go home. But I'm like super crazy, and I'm like, you have to take your shoes off, and you have to like sanitize everything. You can't go anywhere before you come to my house because, if someone goes to a pet store or a rescue place and plays with a sick puppy and then comes to my home, then all of my puppies can get sick. Right. So it is a real danger. So I do allow them to come after they've been established and everything like that. And so just being aware and asking the right questions, and don't get, everybody gets, "Oh, look how cute it is. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh." Then everything that you've been told completely gets erased out of your brain and you don't remember any of it. And now you have this puppy. And then you're like, "Oh yeah, I was supposed to do all these things." Or you have this dog and you're like, "I was supposed to do all those things and I totally forgot because I got so excited to see the dog." Nobody should ever buy any animal, whether it's a dog or a rodent or anything, on an impulse. Like, it should always be a thought out thing, and you should always be prepared. You should always be ready for it before it comes home. That's a big thing.
This is dogs. This all applies to cats.
Everything, cats,
Bunnies,
guinea pigs, birds, fish, whatever. You really want to make sure, that you're ready and prepared for them, because nothing impulse buys, which a lot of puppies from pet stores, those are totally impulse buys.
Oh yeah.
So they get you because they're so cute, and then they hand it to you, and you're like, "Oh."
Well, and also to speak on that,
So
this one drives me a little bit crazy. There's a lot of people that are like, "Well, it didn't look like a good store, and I just wanted to save that one puppy from that store," which I get it. But you gave that store money, which is now just going to keep refilling that window.
They're going to take that money and they're going to buy more puppies.
To resist that. Try as hard as you can and just think, okay, I'm saving hundreds of dogs if I don't buy that one dog, right?
Yes.
Also, to back up, when you were talking about, breeders having too many dogs, I see a lot, though, that I guess these would be the backyard breeders, that they're still only doing 1 or 2 litters a year, but they do not know. This, I think, is where those health checks and all that other stuff comes in, because otherwise you wouldn't know. They're also really into what they're doing. They love what they're doing. They love dogs. But they're doing it for fun, and they are not doing that super serious stuff, the genetic testing, the all that stuff. That's where that stuff comes in. And definitely all of this is worth it to do because this animal is, 18 something years. And if you talk to people that are having medical problems with their dogs, which is not guaranteed. Not every rescue is going to do that, and not every pet store and puppy mill dog is going to have a
Reputable
bunch
breeders,
of,
though, are going to give you a health guarantee
yeah,
usually.
reputable breeders give you a health guarantee. I think it is confusing for people, though, that my friend got a dog from this store or, what have you, and it's fine. I get it. I understand. That's how genetics works. The chances, though, of it having a problem are so much higher. And even behaviorally, you think you got a Shih Tzu, but actually that dog isn't genetically whatever, and now you've got bad behavior and it wasn't chosen for you.
Right.
And, by 3, 4, 5, that it needs knee surgery and it needs blah, blah, blah. Again, that's not every dog. It's a lot, though. It's a lot of them, I can tell you.
Yeah.
And she can, too. She works in a vet clinic as
Yeah.
well. We've been groomers for 20 years, and we see it every single day. It's not a rarity at all.
Yeah. And the thing with the things that pop up, people are like, oh, well, he got a dog from this pet store and he was fine. Well, the percentages are still pretty high with the things that happen, but the percentages that nothing happens right away are also pretty high. So sometimes those dogs don't, they don't have any problems until they're 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. And then one of those, hidden sleeping genetic issues pops up, and then it's super expensive. It's heartbreaking for the family. It's heartbreaking for the dog because, if the people that bred this dog would have just done the necessary testing before they bred them, then this would have been avoided. The heartache would have been avoided. And so that's really another thing with the pet stores. I just want to say this.
Yeah.
No reputable breeder will sell puppies to a pet store. I've never met one person in all the hundreds of people that I've met that would sell puppies to a pet store, because you don't know where those puppies are going to end up. You don't know what's going to happen to them. They're going to get sick. The stress of being in a pet store is so high. Those puppies do not come from reputable breeders. So please do not buy from a pet store.
Yeah, can we clarify too?
Yeah.
Because I was, calling like the pet store in my neighborhood and whatever, and I was like, where do you get them? Where do you get them? Because everyone says, no, I know this person for years and they don't come from puppy mills. A, of course, I'm not going to tell you that. B, some of them may really not believe it. What they know is the dogs are USDA approved. It's like buying meat, right? But they're not meeting the breeder. There's a different breeder. There's like a catalog, right? The standards for being USDA approved is what? Tell us about
So here's the thing. So in order to be a USDA breeder, you have to have a certain number of dogs to be inspected by the United States Department of Agriculture. You have to have a lot of dogs. I think certain states, like I want to say Missouri, you have to have more than 6 or 8 breeding females. So that's like a lot. Like that's breeding age females. Those are 6 or 8 dogs that you're going to be breeding in your home. That's a lot, because that means you probably also have a male dog. So you're probably looking at around 10 dogs that you'd have to have before you can even required to be licensed. So the stipulations or the minimum requirements for the USDA are not very high. So that's the other misconception. Well, they're inspected and they're certified, and they don't, like, they have to provide food, shelter, water, and they have to provide minimal space. So I think for a small dog, it's like 4 feet or something. It's not very much at all. They did change them here in Missouri a few years ago. They're a little bit better, and there's a lot of breeders that'll be like super mad that I'm talking about this, because they don't really like people getting involved in their business and telling them how they have to do things.
they also,
But
there's some of them that don't feel, everyone has a different level
Yes,
of like what's
exactly.
acceptable for animals and whatever.
Yes,
So
yes,
I
exactly.
think it's just about clarification, and people
Yeah.
can make up their own mind. Okay. Well, here we are. I'm more on the rescue side. She's more on the breeder side. Not true. She's literally both.
I'm literally right
She's
there.
literally both. But as someone who's not really on the breeder side, I think there can be some common ground. I think at the end of the day, the biggest takeaway is knowledge, and regulations would fix 90% of this stuff, and we could have a completely different relationship in this country between people and pets. And side note, that goes for the grooming industry too, but that's
Yeah.
yeah, and that's, again, like she said, birds, fish, I don't know, everything.
Yeah, anything, yeah.
Anything. I think it's important it would be great if we had some more regulations and people could come together a little bit. There will be a difficulty with, like you said,
So
some
Chicago
people.
today, I don't know if you saw it in the news, they
No,
just
what happened in
passed,
Chicago?
they are not allowed to sell puppies in pet stores anymore in Chicago.
Really?
Yes, they've been trying to work on it,
Okay.
which I think is great. And hopefully that will continue along because I do think that pet stores should be they shouldn't be allowed to sell puppies and kittens and
Right.
things,
Now, there
so.
are some that genuinely are pet stores that are, they actually
Do
sell
like rescue.
rescues, right? Because they know people like that setup and it makes it a little more easy and palatable for people that are afraid of going to the shelter and they see it as like the pound and it's so bad.
Right, yeah.
That when they dress it up as that, then people kind of get like, it's the same dogs. Hey, it's okay. And you're rescuing. So don't think everywhere is bad. Research where you're going. But again, reiterate what you said, if it's a genuine for-profit pet store, it's not coming from a reputable breeder. Sorry, the other breeders, but I'm agreeing with her.
And if something happens to that puppy and it gets real sick, and like has to go and be hospitalized and it costs thousands of dollars, they're not going to pay you back. They are not going to.
They have like a 1-year guarantee or something. But like you said, they don't get stuff that first year.
Yeah.
Usually, it's
Well, yeah, but even like if they have parvo or some other like bad contagious thing, which is a lot of those pet stores do, they don't pay the bill. They tell you you're pretty much stuck with the bill.
Oh, you get a guarantee in the dog if they don't pay the bill.
No, only if it's a genetic issue.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that's the thing you really have to be careful. Like, just don't buy a dog from a pet store. Really, that's like,
True.
that's the thing.
Well, we've been on a long time. I'm sure this will be. We'll have some follow up. I'm sure there's going to be backlash from people.
Yeah,
I don't know.
for sure.
But I really, really, really appreciate having you on. And again, I don't know if I did mention this, but she also works in a vet clinic and has for years. So she is physically seeing the problems that happen with these dogs, not just being in a groom shop. She's seeing them come into the clinic and helping them.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was so fun catching up.
Yes.
I'm so glad that I got to come to St. Louis. It was like the old times.
Yay.
I'll see you soon. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening and follow us for more wherever you get your podcast. Also check us out on Instagram at A Brief Pause.